My intel states our peers in Universe 14 are down bad in the wake of an enemy who has managed to get their hands on some incredible, never-before-seen weaponry. Reports suggest these weapons are being provided to the enemy interdimensionally, and we've traced identical radiation signatures to Universe 09's Asgard, the middle-lower regions of Nidavellir to be exact. I enlarged the holographic coordinates of Asgard's world tree and rest my finger on the dull mountainous landmass that makes up the region. Storm steps forward for a closer look. Nidavellir, she utters inquisitively and with nigh-perfect pronunciation. Yeah, and if it's anything like our Asgard, every precious gemstone you've ever or never heard of is in those mountains and surely guarded by some dwarves. However, that's not the point of our concern, I say as I pull up a visual of the area's current unstable energy readings. These readings are indicative of dimensional turbulence, and it can't be a coincidence. Does this Asgard not have a Thor to play border control? Storm asks. Maybe, but in my experience, the odds of their Thor being an ally are strikingly similar to the odds of him being a zombie, psychopath, and or complete asshole zombie psychopath. Besides, Christmas is coming and you still need a gift for Rocket. Storm folds her arms. A shower would make for a far better gift if you ask me, she says. Well, 2 gifts for Rocket this year then, I say as I rise from my chair. We deploy our top units to investigate Nidavellir stat. Storm nods in agreement, then goes to gather the crew. Storm slowly descends upon the dark fields, home of the dwarves, from the frigid canopy of clouds underlining the boughs of Jotunheim. Surveying the mountains below, she immediately spots several dwarven excavation sites teeming with dwarves, hustling to and from the mouths of wide and seemingly bottomless tunnel entryways. Upon closer inspection from above, while cloaked in a veil of fog, Storm identifies gigantic slabs of uru ore, nearly twice their size, hoisted over their backs and carried one by one from the mines, all the way to a massive mound of the stuff in the center of the excavation site. Dwarves uprooting all of their resources to the surface was strange enough, but dwarves not turning into stone the moment their flesh met the sunlight was anomalous in and of itself. Storm sets her sights on what was likely the culprit of the turbulent energy readings. A faint crackling of red dimensional tearing sits static in the sky nearby. Undoubtedly a tear into the Nexus. Well, there's our Uru pipeline, I say. Though I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt, could the dwarves knowingly be providing resources to dimensional terrorists? There's no way raw Uru is being transported to Universe 14 off the backs of dwarves. They must be converting it somehow. Storm, you see any facilities nearby that they could be transporting it to? Storm takes a closer look and finds no trace of facilities. However, does notice peculiar signs that this universe's dwarves were different. Their stocky appendages were covered in gray scales, some bronze. Their usual stiff posture now relegated to a pharaoh-esque hunch in their lurching strides. Void of their typical rambunctiousness, the entire excavation site fell silent with nothing but the sounds of shrilled creaking of stridulating body parts grinding on one another. Shit. It was then that I realized. Storm, flood the excavation site, I shout. Puzzled by my sudden request to drown an entire community of dwarves, rightly so, Storm begins to question the motive when suddenly a terrifying shriek reverberates across the mountains. Storm looks down and sees every single dwarf gazing upward, past her obscuring veil, and directly at her with giant red eyes. All at once, the dwarves begin to morph, stretch, and tear into grotesque insectoid monstrosities as hundreds of them begin to pour out of the Nidavellir mines. The brood, A terrifying parasitic scourge reveals itself, and without hesitation, Storm calls forth the torrential wrath of the sky above as an endless hostile rain begins to flood out the entire excavation site.
Wind, aid my hand.
Like an irritated hive of ants, the brood congregate into large rigid mounds, climbing atop one another at an incredible rate and high enough to reach Storm, who we see strafing among the rain clouds in avoidance while whipping up gales of wind that, despite pulverizing the towers of the sailing brood, only seem to make matters worse as several more swarms desperately engage. "Storm, watch your six!" I shout, just as two large winged brood called sleazoids soar in with stingers extended. Storm spins around and channels the momentum of her twirl into a cyclone of force that decimates a sleazoid, sending chunks of its endoskeleton into every direction. When just then, a second sleazoid grazes her shoulder with its poisonous stinger, leaving a lethal, burning laceration. However, like a matador, Storm repositions and channels a bolt of lightning through her fingertips directed at the sleazoid in passing, vanquishing it into a charbroiled husk. With fingers still charged with power, Storm zaps her shoulder wound, cauterizing it and stopping the poison in its tracks. "Alright, fellas, I need guns on that Nexus point. That portal was recently opened and whoever's here will likely be returning." Darting across the sky, our ship, the Benatar, enters the vicinity as Peter Quill and Rocket Raccoon prepare to embark on the Nexus, but can't seem to come to an agreement as the two bicker in the ship's hangar. "Dude, you're not riding on my back with that thing." "Fine, how about I wear the boots and you ride my back since that's what you're good at anyway. Riding my back. Dora Milaje this. Dora Milaje's gonna find us that. You just wish you had this arm. Nobody wants another man's arm except you, and maybe the Collector. And to be honest, that's some weird company to keep, bro." "Oh yeah? Well, how about you keep this finger company? It's so alone." I jump in and snatch the arm from Rocket. "I'll watch the arm. Get out of here. Go, go, go!" Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon engage the Nexus from atop the Benatar, when suddenly, slowly emerging from the Nexus, a variant of the Cosmic Herald, the Silver Surfer, comes hovering through. Though his typical silver flesh was instead embroiled with vibrant reds, seemingly tainted by the constant exposure to the red uru. As the Red Surfer returns to his patrolling of the excavation site, he has an expression of surprise and confusion, not looking too happy to see us here interfering in their secret operation. No matter what universe he was from, if a Silver Surfer was involved, it wasn't going to be pretty, and this surely meant someone with brains and sinister intent was behind all of this. I shout into the comms, "Quick, take him out before he calls reinforcements." Star-Lord and Rocket swiftly ambush the chromed-out adversary, unleashing an energetic barrage of firepower. Every beam, laser, and ray hitting its mark, engulfing their target in a cloud of vibrant, smoldering vapors that slowly dissipate, revealing an unscathed and unbothered Silver Surfer. His unwavering chrome-red flesh was blotted with residual radiation and can be seen actively soaking in their projectiles. "Hey, Director, have a plan B for your fellow Chrome Dome out here?" Rocket exclaims. He had a right to be worried. I like to be better prepared for a Cosmic Herald, but hey, that's why I get paid the big bucks. We're gonna make do with what we have. "Don't worry, backup is coming," I say. "Light him up, buy us time." "Roger that," Rocket says as he pulls out a rifle that expands, folds, and flips into a rocket launcher twice his size. "Hey, Peter, may want to step aside." Star-Lord steps back when just then he feels a tingle in his brain from a sudden cosmic shift. The hairs on his neck raises as the bottom of Peter's boots begin to melt and Rocket's bare feet gets severely burned, causing him to drop his rifle, leaping up onto Star-Lord. The surface of the Benatar begins to glow hot white and became nearly as hot as the sun. With hand outward, The Silver Surfer's power cosmic radicalizes the energy empowering the Benatar, rendering it a scorching heap of dead machinery, soon to explode. Star-Lord ascends into the sky as the dead bellowing ship plummets and crashes into the mountains below. Several steps ahead, my parachute carries me safely onto the mountainside, far away enough to avoid the explosion, but far too close to Storm's tempest ravaging the excavation site. The flooding raging waters uncomfortably close. I radio into the other units aboard the ship to see if they've safely retreated the Benatar's demise, but with the storm and cosmic radiation surging above, getting a signal proved difficult. I carefully make my way around the mountain when I find an ally, the Juggernaut, slightly disoriented from the cosmic heat plaguing his helmet. Before I can make my way over to him and get his attention, a figure suddenly emerges from cloaked obscurity. A Black Panther pounces from a cliff above me and lands with a flourishing spin kick across my head, sending my glasses flying into the flood regions below. I scramble to my feet, my vision blurry, not from lack of medically assisted lens wear, but mainly due to the kinetically charged foot that I'm sure just gave me a concussion. This Black Panther also seemed influenced by the Red Uru, as red strands of kinetic energy coalesced throughout his Uru microwave mesh suit. "We have a director involved," he says to an unknown entity communicating with him through his helmet. Just as I suspected, I knew there was someone calling the shots. "Hey, Red Panther doesn't really hit like that. It just doesn't have that ring to it," I say while rubbing my jaw, and despite the ringing in my head. He wasn't amused. His claws protract as he begins marching toward me, clearly having had received the command to kill me. "I hope you can swim," I say with a smirk, just as Juggernaut comes rampaging from his six and grabs at the Panther, but the Panther elusively slips the Titan's grip, somersaulting over and on top of the Juggernaut's head and begins pummeling him with kinetic blows. Unwavering, the Juggernaut grabs hold of the Red Panther, his hand nearly the size of his body, and slams him into the mountainside with tremendous force. I use this opportunity to take my leave. Unrelenting and still bound by the Juggernaut's massive hand, the Red Panther counters with a guided explosion of stored kinetic energy that erupts the entire mountainside, triggering a massive rock slide. However unmoved, the Juggernaut rips the Panther from the tomb of rocks, then violently shoves him back into the mountainside again. And then with a loud roar, rips the Panther's limp body from the debris and tosses him off the mountain into the flooding depths below.
Wakanda forever!
Rocket Raccoon unloads every ounce of artillery he has atop the shoulders of Star-Lord, zigzagging uncontrollably throughout the air, his jet boots struggling to contend with the massive kickback generated from Rocket's reckless assault. "Just stop, it's useless, it's all phasing right through him," Peter shouts. "Shut up, will ya? We don't want him to know that we know it's useless," Rocket screams as he expels a barrage of anti-air ballistic missiles that proliferate and pepper the Surfer's general vicinity with explosive force, when suddenly, the Red Surfer instantaneously reappears on a collision course facing them head-on. Star-Lord pumps the brakes, and with a quick few key presses on his helmet, summons a remote-piloted space vessel, the Rider, swooping in like a train, barreling into the Surfer, sending him and his board spiraling into the mountains. Star-Lord and Rocket look at each other in awe, fist bump, and begin celebrating. I radio in. "Now you know celebrating too soon is bad juju. Cut it out. Rendezvous with these coordinates. Stat." Nearing the end of her rope, Storm continues to hold the line against the hordes of brood who grow increasingly aggressive and successful in their attempt to overwhelm and waylay from all angles. with powerful tentacles that brood from below, barrage the sky with boulders, deadly accurate and even taking out their own, as more and more sleazoids swarm the clouds, only to be zapped by nets of chain lightning, further fatiguing Storm, who we see struggling to sustain her breath in the thin, cold Asgard atmosphere. "Director, how much longer?" she shouts, just as she is waylaid by several sleazoid gone berserk by the server's cosmic radiation. Hiding behind a big-ass rock, I assure her not too much longer and peek over a large clearing where I'm detecting the source of the readings. I reach into my coat pocket and retrieve a small handheld pager given to all directors of S.H.I.E.L.D. Not too much longer. Moments later, Star-Lord lands on the coordinates provided, with Rocket clenched around his shoulders, paws severely burned. They approach what seems to be a suspicious clearing in the mountains, with no sign of the director, only the spatial tear into the Nexus looming not too far above. "Hey, director, where are you?" Suddenly, from under their noses, a construct grows, lengthens, and expands to its original size, revealing a large weapons facility right before their eyes. Bewildered, Star-Lord and Rocket stare in awe at the now maximized facility. Rocket mounts Star-Lord's head for a better view. I think we found our bad guy's hideout." "Look sharp," Star-Lord shouts, readying his element pistols, as two unknown entities appear in the doorway of the facility. The Red Death, the tongue of Zernabog, Omega Red, steps outside the building, accompanied by Atom Unit 0. Standing on his wing, awaiting orders, Star-Lord screams into his radio, "Director, we have a big red problem, a big blonde red problem." I respond, "Don't worry, everything is under control." Our communications suddenly cut, as Atom Unit 0 does what Atom Unit 0 does and dampens the waves in the air, relegating our communications to shit, just as a giant carbonadium tentacle comes lashing across the mountain range, colliding in the Star-Lord, sending him and Rocket soaring into the air. Twirling uncontrollably, Rocket is flung upward but gains some control by unleashing a barrage of gunfire, propelling him upward to break his fall. Star-Lord reactivates his jet boots and circles back around to Omega Red's flank, spraying his element pistols while evading several swiping tentacles for as long as he could, until another tentacle blindsides him, shattering his helmet and sending him plummeting to the ground. Rocket Raccoon flips, and in a rage-filled adrenaline rush, scurries toward Omega Red, blood seeping from his tiny mangled paws with every step, unloading all his munitions upon his targets. But with a simple gesture of Zero's hands, Rocket's guns malfunction and soon erupt into sparks and gun oil. Rocket falls to his knees and looks Omega Red in his crimson glowing eyes as he and Zero approach. It was then he noticed the director stealthily creeping around the corner of the facility toward the entrance. They both make eye contact as the director makes a shushing gesture with his finger to his lips, then points upward before sneaking into the facility without being noticed. Who's watching my arm?" Rocket stammers as his vision blurs, throat burns like an inferno, and heart begins to palpitate the closer Omega Red gets as the demon's death factor aura emits lethal pheromones into the tiny mutant's heart, slowly spreading death spores throughout his innards. When suddenly, crashing from above and between both assailants, perfectly nailing a two-point superhero landing, Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers herself, enters the fray and with a well-placed pivot and lunge, throws a devastating right hook into Omega Red's back, penetrating his spine. With cybernetic reflexes, Zero channels an energy beam from its face, directed toward Captain Marvel, who effortlessly capturing it with her own energy barrier, then ergo-kinetically phases through Omega Red, bringing Zero's stored energy through it with her, nearly eviscerating the stunned Carbinium demon's abdomen. Then, with all her mind and soul, hurls the erupting concoction of photonic energy back at Omega Red and Zero, hitting them like a mini nuke that levels the entire mountain range and all distant mountains behind them. Star-Lord comes to his senses and leans up on his elbow, witnessing the feat, and with a sigh of relief, plumps back onto his back. We cut to inside the facility and see Variant Director Denisito scrambling around the weapons facility in a panic, gathering up all her cubes, plans, and destroys all traces of her operations as she prepares to make an escape, sprinting down the corridor until she comes face to face with me, standing there, waiting nonchalantly, admiring the Uru ore clenched between my fingertips. She comes to a halt and draws a gun on me. Honestly, I should have known a director was involved. I mean, who else could coordinate a multiversal weapon smuggling route chaperoned by a herald of Galactus and have savage hive-minded broodlings slaving in an Asgardian mind for them? I mean, that's impressive. Director Denisito spits at the floor under me and turns to make a run for it, but dashes smack dab into a knee to the gut, a chop to the throat, and a judo flip face first into the floor. And the last words she hears, resonating throughout her mind, sleep, as Mantis's hands, wrapped around her face, lays her to rest.
Victory!
Rocket sobs quietly over losing the Benatar, bedbound, with both feet bandaged and propped up on his vibranium arm, when he suddenly hears a knock on his door. Rocket quickly fixes his face, wiping away all traces of sorrow, and obliges his visitor to enter. Storm slowly steps in. "Ho, ho, ho, look what the rain washed in," Rocket says. Unamused, Storm paces over to the tiny makeshift Christmas tree sitting in the corner of his room and slides a tiny gift box up under it, turns to him, and with a sharp glare says, "Don't open it till Christmas," then makes her way back to the door. I knew you had some Christmas spirit somewhere in that big hairdo for me." Storm shoots him another sharp glare, and just before slamming the hatch shut, she snaps her fingers, triggering a downpour of rain to fall from above his bed.